IVM.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories, India's very own travel podcast, where each week we share the journey of travelers in their own words and relive their experiences with you, our listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Musafir Stories. I hope you're all well and keeping safe. On the podcast today, we have a returning guest again, and you would probably have noticed a little bit of a pattern here that we have been bringing back a lot of guests from previous episodes, and we do that because for that very reason, that they bring great stories to us that have been liked and appreciated not just by us but by a lot of listeners as well. So we're really grateful to the guests who keep coming back to the podcast. And one such guest today is Amruta Dhalkar, a museologist and archivist who's already been on the podcast covering some wonderful itineraries and experiences in Kolhapur and Sawantwadi in Maharashtra in the past. So we're looking forward to another exciting conversation with Amruta. Let's hop onto the episode and find out where she's taking us to today. So with that introduction, we'd love to welcome back I should say, Amruta Dhalkar, a museologist and archivist to the Musafir Stories. Hey Amruta, thank you so much for being back on the podcast and welcome.
Thank you so much for calling me back. It has now started feeling like a home. Thank you so much.
It is indeed. And while I was chatting with Amruta, it's just marvelous that how long ago the conversations we've been having go back to. And for those listening to you for the first time, Amruta has already been on the podcast a couple of times doing some wonderful episodes, one on Kolhapur and the other on Sawantwadi. And you probably have already figured that she's an expert and our go-to person when it comes to any itineraries in Maharashtra. So really, really glad to have you back, Amruta. And also, for the sake of first-time listeners again, Amruta, do you also want to give a quick introduction about yourself?
Sure. So I work with the museums and archives. I would joke about it that I'm professionally paid to stay in the past. So basically... I work with the audiovisual collections, I work with the old records, and I also do design museums.
Yeah, wonderful. And this is only a part of what Amruta does, besides telling us some wonderful stories about places, right? Like she did with both Kolhapur and Sawantwadi, some lesser known gems. I mean, obviously for people in Maharashtra, they probably know them better, but for some of us outsiders, we usually tend to associate these places with one or two things, and that's all we know about that. And Amruta has been such a marvelous resource and guide in letting us know so much more about these places. So really looking forward to another exciting conversation today, Amruta. Do you also want to give us and our listeners a quick overview of where you want to take us to today?
This time again, we are going to the shore, which is not to the Sawantwadi and Sindhudurga district in general. Today we are going to Ratnagiri district and we are going to explore a few places which are less explored in Ratnagiri.
Wonderful. I really look forward to this conversation, and I'm sure you have a bunch of stuff to surprise us and amaze all of us. Again, for the ones that are not very familiar with the geography where Ratnagiri is located, do you want to outline on a map where the district is?
Sure. So Ratnagiri is in between Raigad and Sindhudurga district, and at its west there is Arabian Sea. At its east there are Sahyadri mountain ranges as well as Kolhapur district. And while going from Mumbai to Goa, you will definitely cross this district.
Yeah, for sure. And back in the day, I think this goes back for like 5-6 years ago, we had done a small episode on a road trip across this region, including several other places. So hoping for a little bit of a flashback as well during the conversation. But I'm really, really looking forward to this. Basically in the western part of India, close to the Arabian Sea in the state of Maharashtra. That's where Ratnagiri district is. And in terms of access, how accessible is this, Amruta? Like getting there, it should not be a problem, I'm assuming, yeah?
No, so it is very well connected with trains. So there are so many trains which are also coming from Delhi as long as Tiruvananthapuram. So these are directly connected trains. Also, you can reach to Mumbai. From Mumbai, you can catch up train. There are buses also. I would not recommend taking buses in rainy season though, because the roads may get a little murky with the water and everything. But otherwise, train is a really, really good option. If you have your own vehicle, you can drive through. The another option that you can come through is Kolhapur district. Kolhapur also has an airport nearby, and from Kolhapur to Ratnagiri, it's 2.5 hours distance. You can also opt for state transport buses. They are really, really good. You can come from Goa also by train. Then there are buses, but it will be longer to come by bus from Goa than that of the train. And the airports nearby are Mumbai, Goa, and in Kolhapur.
Okay, wonderful. So, as we see, it is very well connected as well, and you can pick and choose the mode of transport you want to get here by.
Yep.
And just setting a little bit more context, from a historical standpoint, as well as just looking back into the past, you want to set some context about the place, important people, dynasties that have ruled the region too?
Sure. So basically, it is flanked by the sea and it is flanked by the mountains also. So the passes that we call ghats in India, or there are so many ports, small tiny ports, but very important and internationally connected back in centuries ago, I must say. So this gives a really amazing history and very international history for that time, I must say. So it was very well connected with Arabs. It was very well connected with the southern trading ports. It was very well connected with Surat back in the time. The passes, the ghats would connect it to the mainland, which leads to the Deccan. So this gives a place very unique feature, and hence the place was desired by so many dynasties. So if just I have to read the names of the dynasties which were interested or which came here, one of them was Rudradaman of Mahakshatrapa family. Mauryas were there, Chalukya, Hoysala, Shilahar, Yadav, Marathas, also European powers like Portuguese, British, even Dutch were interested into this territory, and there were so many power changes that happened through centuries in this trip. But very interesting thing I must say is the history just does not take us back centuries or let's say 2000, 3000 years, but history here takes us 20,000 years back, and that's the antiquity of this district.
Yeah, for sure. And that was also one of the things that really caught me by surprise, because obviously trading and Marathas and this being a district with a lot of important port towns, etc., all of that is known to most people, I would say. But a couple of things, like one, trade with European countries like Rome and Greeks and stuff like that. That was very surprising, and even more surprising than that was this history of going back several thousands of years, right? 20, 30,000 years ago. That we'll definitely talk a little bit more. We'll keep the suspense for now. But thank you so much for setting that little bit of a context. Now, for somebody looking to explore Ratnagiri, right, the district in general, how would you recommend one starts looking at this? Are there areas or regions of importance that you'd like to call out?
Majorly, I would bifurcate the district into 4 parts. One cluster is, I must say, Dapoli, Khed, Mandangad, which is like crown of Ratnagiri at the northern part. It is serene, beautiful, and there are so many places of interest that you can visit. And a little different culture than that of the southern Ratnagiri. So it's a different flavor. People are aware about Guhagad and Chiplun very well. It is well-traveled place. Then there is a cluster of, I would say, Sangameshwar and Ratnagiri people can do together. And then there is a cluster Rajapur and Lanja. Why I'm saying this cluster is because the travel would be easier. So from Kolhapur you can approach Ratnagiri, Sangameshwar, Lanja, and Rajapur easily. From Karad you can approach the northern part like Chiplun, Guhagad, Mandangad easily. From Raigad, if you're coming by train, you can get down at Khed station for the northern cluster. You can get down at Sangameshwar and Chiplun for those clusters. There's a railway station in Ratnagiri, and then there are railway stations in Lanja and Rajapur also.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I think this is some very useful information, right? Otherwise, while planning an itinerary, one could easily overlook that and take a more tedious way. And also, like, it's not to say that you have to or will need to cover everything in one itinerary. Like, you could always break this down to smaller itineraries depending on your travel. Like, if you're, for example, in another district of Maharashtra, I could easily like cover, let's say, the northern cluster or the southern cluster, depending on where you are, right? So I could just make an itinerary
Right.
for those places. So thank you for breaking it down that way too. Now let's jump into the conversation a little bit and go through these places. Do you want to start off with any of the specific cluster to talk about Ratnagiri?
Yeah, I would actually start with Mandangad, Khed, Dapoli, that cluster, which is very less explored, I must say. The history here is very unique. The approaches that people have for these places is very unique. So Mandangad has very interesting places. So it has a fort also, which is overlooking the town. Then there is another fort, which is Bankot, which is near the Mandangad town. And Bankot is also known as Himmatgarh and once upon a time known as a Victoria fort. So history would be really amazing. So this is guarding river trade. These forts were built basically to guard the river trades. The trading that is happening through, you keep an eye, you safeguard the trade, and as well as you keep the boundaries safe. Then another interesting thing about Mandangad is 36 kilometers away from the town, there is a small village called Vedas. And if you're going to Vedas, it's definitely a serene beach. But more than that, it is a marine conservation festival of turtles. There are small turtles, and like particular time of the year, you can go and see the turtle breeding and everything. Imagine that you are on the seashore and these tiny turtles are approaching towards seashore every day. It's a sight that you will never forget, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And a pretty unique experience. And I'm glad that, like you mentioned, this is also being conserved and preserved as much as possible, right? This is not becoming into a completely commercial activity that basically harms the turtle population and takes this away from us. So thank you, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, very good to know. And this is basically one of the forts as well. You mentioned, right? Here is in Mandangad is one of the forts as well that used to protect the river trade. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about the other fort as well. Is this Bangkok you mentioned?
Barncode Fort, yes. So there are so many mentioning of this fort in the British area, and the location is very well known for the seafarers back in the centuries. This gives a unique the identification of this unique location is something amazes me. When you go and stand on these forts, the vantage points that you can cover up actually gives you more understanding. These forts are not again big in the sizes; they are very small forts. Now they are like so many fishermen community and other communities are residing in and around forts also, so you can take help of them. They can tell you local stories and their like forefathers memories about the forts and everything, so this way you can explore these forts better.
Yeah, definitely very interesting. And yeah, especially in Maharashtra, right? Like you mentioned, the number of forts, you could probably just do a podcast series itself covering of the forts and the navy, especially from the Maratha time. So yeah, I think really good call outs there. And anything else in this cluster that you would like to call out, or are we moving to the next cluster?
So there are hot springs also in this area. There are 4-5 hot springs in the district. So one of them is Unhavre hot spring. Unhavre is located in Mandangad Tehsil. It is approachable from Dapoli also, and it is approachable from Mandangad also. so people can go and enjoy it. Also, there are serene, crystal clear, beautiful beaches. One of them is Kershi, which you can go. So these things are there. Also, very one notable thing is there is a small village called Amboli, which is probably a birthplace. If I'm recollecting it right, birthplace of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. So it'll kind of establish the antiquity as what I was saying of the district.
Yeah, for sure. No, a lot of important people as well, especially looking at some of the references that you shared earlier. So looking forward to covering some of those off. And where would you suggest we move to next?
So moving to the Dapoli site, there are cave sites. The cave site is called as a Panhare Kaji Caves. So these caves are, I guess, Buddhist caves, and they are again on the riverside and very pristine location. This also gives a flavor how different religions were coexisting in this area. So this is a very unique experience that people can see. There are, I guess, about 30 caves and cave sales. So it's a big cluster that people can go. Take a help of local guide to navigate you through the roads and everything. But it is very well connected with the buses. And if you are coming by train, then get down at Khed, and then you will be able to, see it.
I think in general, Maharashtra does have some really interesting and important caves and cave temples or just cave structures also, right? Across the shoreline also, like not limited to one, and they're also pretty different, like you said, differing from Hindu to Buddhist to even Jain caves. So really interesting from that point of view as well. And also, I mean, I'm probably overdoing it, but adds to the diversity, right? This is something we did not touch upon earlier, but this is certainly an option for somebody in the area. And having touched upon these Panhela Kaji, I'm butchering the names also, I think, caves. What would you want to touch upon next?
So there are, again, if see, I am a localite and I have been going to these places. I have few of them I have visited in my childhood, and then I have a knowledge gap there. So you may find some difference in what things I'm saying. But having said that, the beaches here are a bit different. They are a bit cleaner on the side. If you they are very secluded. There are only localite presence there, so you can experience all these things. Along with that, there are so many forts, as I've said. So there is a Harnei Bandar in Dapoli. There is a Suvarna Durga fort, if I'm recollecting the name right. Then there is a Verneshwar temple and Bamangad and everything. So all these places of interest are in and around Dapoli, Mandangad, and Khed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we'll always try to give a sense of what's available, but there's a bunch of other touristy things too, be it the beaches or the religious circuits and temples that are always there. So one can definitely dig into it a little bit deeper to find out more about that. And is this most of the things that you wanted to call out about the cluster around Dapoli?
Yeah.
That we started off with? Okay. And where or what would you like to discuss next in terms of the clusters itself?
So next, I would recommend Guhagad and Chiplun. Many tourists in Maharashtra knows Guhagad and Chiplun. These are kind of established tourist places, I must say. In Guhagad, you can go and enjoy the seashore, the calm and quiet life of Konkani villages. You can go to the religious temples. You can also, like, people flock around Guhagad for the religious reasons as well. Also, if I want to talk about Chiplun is like a connecting town to very many places. So from Chiplun, you can approach to Ratnagiri, Guhagad, Khed, and all these places. So that is one thing. Also, very interesting. So this is not a tourist place, but just an information I'm dropping by to give a flavor. So in Chiplun, there is an area called Pag, P-A-A-G, Pag. So Pag is basically where the horse stable is, or horse stable is known as a Pag in Marathi, like 300-year-old Marathi, and now also some people use this word. So this gives us an idea how heavy military was probably stationed in this place and what is the importance of this particular place in the history. So nearby there is a fort called Govardhan Fort. Then there is a temple of Parshuram near the Parshuram Pass. Very interestingly, this temple has a very unique history. So this is dedicated to Lord Parshuram, and there was one Bijapur Begum, like Begum from the Sultanate. She was traveling to Makkah, and while going to the Makkah, she had offered some amount for the restoration of the temple, or she was probably facing some adversity with the sea route, and hence she offered certain amount for the restoration of the temple. I would be touching back again the point of diversity. So these are some interesting stories that people I would tell you about these places. So in and around Chiplun, you can go to Govardhan, you can go to Parshuram and these places in Guhagad to unwind and relax. And there are also some temples there and seashores that you can enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you mentioned, these places also fall on the route between Mumbai and Goa, right? So a lot of times people are doing road trips and things like that. So that also gives you an opportunity, right? You don't have to travel for the sake of traveling these places. If that doesn't fall in your itinerary or anything, you could always extend like another road trip you might be doing by spending more time in places like these, right? Guhagad and Chiplun. I'm sure we have touched upon at least a couple of these places in the past too, while covering off like Mumbai Goa road trips. So just
Yeah.
another perspective of how you could prioritize travel to these places without having to actually just plan something focused on these places. But yeah, thank
Right,
you
right.
for calling out some of the important aspects of Guhagad and Chiplun as well. And where to from here?
So from here, I'm taking you to one of my favorite places in the district, which is Sangameshwar town. This town has a very amazing history. So literary sources like Sahyadri Khanda, which is a Sthala Puran, gives us details about this place, I must say. So when Shilaharas were ruling this place, there is a mentioning that they must have built about 73 temples in this area. There's this temple called Karaneshwar, which is architectural marvel, I must say. So Karaneshwar temple is something I would say must go. The carving here is exceptional. You may find so many deities. They are not just like the sanctum, they are all over the temple, on the outside walls, on the inside, on the ceilings of the temple. So you must come here with a calm and like a time on hand, basically. Then if you start walking the same route, when you enter the Sangameshwar town, and one route takes you to the Karaneshwar. Keep on walking. I must say, keep on walking on this route only. On the either side, you will see old houses, and they have a very unique architectural style of these houses. And these houses are of the people who usually go on the boats and the seas traditionally, not only now. So I heard this very unique thing. I don't have a source to confirm, but I have heard this, that in Tanzania or in some places in Africa, there are local cricket matches that happen, and they happen on the names of the wadis, like the local areas in Sangameshwar, in Guhagad, in Khed. Like those are the names of the team. How cricket team would have a name here, the local name, the
Yeah,
towns like Pune team, Mumbai team, and Delhi
yeah.
team and Chennai team, everything. Similarly, the cricket matches which happen like few thousand miles away, they bear the name of their own area and they play the cricket. So this is the beauty of the trade. This is how emotionally people are connected to their land back. So you will find the houses of all these people while you're approaching to the Karneshwar temple. Few of the people may indulge into talk. You can talk to them. Few of the people may allow you to enter into their houses and see how what is the structure of the houses, but one must have to be very respectful. So that is there. If you keep on continuing walking, then in between at your right you will find Karneshwar. Still keep on walking ahead, you will come across a river, a small river. Cross the river, there's a small bridge, and at your left, you will find a temple called Sangameshwar. And this is my hinge. From this temple, they must have gotten the name Sangameshwar. Um, no, I'm kidding. So there's this very small temple, and it has a It is on the plinth on a higher platform. You can sit there. There's a river in front of you. Then there are mountains in front of you. Everything is green, blue sky, and this is what do I say? A sight to behold. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in awe of the sight, and me being a localite, I sat there for half an hour. Like imagine. So
Yeah.
these are small gems, and I am sure people would love it.
Okay, yeah, some really interesting points, right from cricket to the beautiful views and the lovely atmosphere at the temple too. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, the easily things that one can miss out, right? If you're just sticking to the highway and driving by, you'll miss a lot
Yeah.
of the history and the stories and the background related to the smaller towns and cities like these. So thank you for sharing these with us. And any other points of interest in and around Sangameshwar that you'd like to cover?
There's a town next called Devruk, which is nestled in the foothills of I would say Sahyadri mountain ranges. There is a very famous religious place named Marleshwar. People usually go there. It's very well known. There's bus connectivity. There are like even you can hire cars and everything, and you can go there. It's very beautiful, nestled in the foothills of Sahyadri. Along with it, there is in Devruk town, there is an old school. Like any other village would have a school from the independence time or pre-independence era. There's a school. But what unique thing is that one of the schoolmasters had a very huge collection of Bombay school paintings, and there is a museum that has been recently opened. I mean, in 2015 or 14, I guess. And you will be able to see all the maestros which we have mentioned in our Kolhapur log also, podcast also, like Abal Rahman and all those people, as well as people who were in. So Bombay school is basically a style, like Bengal school, like Lahore school. There's this unique, very unique style of seeing things and the way light is projected through this painting and everything. I'm a huge fan. I love this. Just keep a day away for this museum. This is a very small museum, yet very unique collection, I must say, of the Bombay school. And you will be able to see the history of development of the Bombay school as an art school. Like
That's very interesting. And this is in Devruk, you mentioned?
yes, yes, yes. The name of the museum is Lakshmi Bai Pitre Kala Sangrahalaya. Along with that, there's a art college nearby. The name of the art college is DCAD, and you can go and explore this college. The professors are really amazing, and people will be really happy to talk to you. Then there is, I guess they have a pottery brand and something like that. So you can explore these small places also, because the art college usually in the urban areas is very different than that of art college in these areas, which is in the nook and corner of the country. So you can enjoy that as well.
Okay. Yeah, again, very interesting and very different from some of the things we've been seeing and observing in the past few minutes, right? So, and where to from here? Is there more things here, or where are we headed down from Devruk?
We will go to Ratnagiri now.
Okay, so all of this was leading up to Ratnagiri, but yeah, if you're confused, basically Ratnagiri is a town in the Ratnagiri district as well, and is the headquarters as well, right?
Right.
Amruta? Yeah. Yeah, no, take it away and tell us a little bit more.
So people who speak in Marathi language or who know P.L. Deshpande, whom I keep on mentioning in all while. So there is a very unique character that he has developed. The name of the character is Antu Barwa. And this is enough for people to describe and understand people in Ratnagiri in particular, I must say.
Okay.
So the character, the thing goes like, I'm like short of word to translate this exactly, but people are very unique. People are kind of very wise. clever, but they we won't speak straight. For sure. Like if someone asks us where's the home of like Amruta, I will say next to the home of so and so. And where does so and so stays? Next to the Amruta. So it would not be an easy answer. But jokes, I'm just kidding. But this is something, if you are Marathi, I would highly, highly recommend listening to Antu Barwa and or reading it, whatever fancies, and then come to Ratnagiri. You will enjoy Ratnagiri the most from the vista of this author.
I can't remember. It's probably Pune that also heard something similar about how Punekars are, right? I think the
Yes,
guest
yes.
gave me a very good analogy. I'm kind of forgetting what the actual words were, but something like that. I mean, I'm not calling you smart asses, but I'm saying that you have a very unique way of having your way with words, right? Just making it
Very true.
witty. I think witty is the right answer rather than being brash like that. But no,
And
thank you for that. Yeah.
localite. So I can say this without any fear about us only.
Yeah, I guess you
So
you
yeah,
have the pass for that. I don't.
right. So Ratnagiri has so many things that when I was in Ratnagiri, I would be like, "Huh, okay, this is just next to my house. This is just 5 minutes walking from my house." But when I actually stepped out of Ratnagiri, I realized, ki, oh my God, we have so many things that we don't even fancy about in Ratnagiri. So there are small temples, there are unique places. We have very unique connection with Myanmar. We have very unique connection with Maratha history. We have very unique connection with people who lived 20,000 years ago on this place. Definitely, if you're in Ratnagiri, you would visit Ratnadurga Fort. Go with the local guide so you can explore the other parts of the forts also, because there's only famous temple, and if you say Ratnadurga, auto guys will take you there. But if you tell them that we want to see the other parts of the forts also, and they are like knowledgeable enough, they will take you to the other parts also. Then there's of course very famous places, the birthplace of Lokmanya Tilak. You can explore the house also. Definitely see it as a birthplace of Lokmanya Tilak, but also see it from the perspective of how the architecture was in 19th century, how the house must have been used, and the expanse, what lies behind the house. Because usually the houses are bigger, but what bigger is the area surrounding and what all it encompasses. So that's very unique. You will see so many coconut trees everywhere. So you can visit these places. You can also go to the temple of Bahiri, which is the Grama Devat. It is Panchayatan as far as I remember. So there are like 5 sanctums dedicated to 5 different cults. Along with that, there are on the outside so many Virugar or Sati Hath will be there. Sati is like the woman who dedicated her life to her husband even after her death. And in her memory, there will be a hand raised, and bangles will be carved on that hand, admiring her sacrifice. So that so many things are there. There is a step well in front of this temple. So usually we are aware of the step wells in Gujarat, and they are definitely magnanimous, definitely huge, beautiful. But we also have step wells which are in size very little but unique, because they're carved in laterite stone, which is very porous. So these are the unique things that you will keep seeing in and around temples, or in the vicinity also. There are stepwells, or like water heritage of Ratnagiri is something unique. There's this guy named Sriranga Masurkar who is working on the water heritage of Ratnagiri. Go and pester him, like he can share his whatever information he has. So all these things are very unique in Ratnagiri, but there's a lot to offer beyond this.
Some of these things are probably known, right? Like this being the hometown of Lokmanya Tilak, or about the forts and everything, the popular ones. But I'm also keenly looking forward to some of the lesser known facts that you touched upon about the 20, 30,000 year old history and traces of that, remnants of that still being around. Can you share some about that too, Amrita?
Sure, sure. What I was going gaga over is the geoglyphs that we found in Ratnagiri district. What is geoglyph? So we have to dwell little into the geography part and then come back to the geoglyphs. Ratnagiri, in general, has a porous rocks, and the one which is very much known is laterite. And there are expanse and expanses of these laterites. So what we called is sada, basically the smaller plateaus that is created by this laterite rock formations. So on this laterite, there are carvings. So carvings is like probably how we draw. Simply, they have drawn on the surface of this land. So you're standing and you're looking at the land, and then there will be some pictures that will come to you. So the border line of these pictures are about inch and like inch and half is the width of that border or the outline of the picture, and they are carved on the zameen pe hai, basically. So earlier, locally we call laterite katar. So these are katar, khod, shilpa. Khod is like carving or digging, and shilpa is like a literal translation is sculpture. But here they are known as a geoglyphs. And there have been so many archaeologists working on this thing. Recently, UNESCO is also inscribed this in the list of the humankind heritage and the world heritage and everything. So there's a lot going on in that area. You may find few geoglyphs as big as 45 feet. Now imagine, they don't have a bird's eye view in that point in time, but still they have carved this unique 45 feet long geoglyphs. Then there are some interesting animals, interesting fishes. Then there are human figurines also. So these are very unique. I mean, you're actually seeing the expression of a person who lived 20,000 years ago on this land. You know, art speaks twice, once when it was created and once when you are seeing it. So it's literally a dialogue between, two people who lived centuries or 1,000 years apart. So for me, it is as poetic as it can get. So if you're interested, there is a small information center in Ratnagiri near the talkies, and like talkies is very well known mark. And from this information center, they will tell you where are all these places and how you can go there. So just to name a few, and which are locally also people are aware about, is one is in Adivre, which is heading towards Rajapur, one is in Devatse Gotne, one is in Zaka Devi, and all these places. So these are carved. So imagine they don't have a means to travel like those many 1,000 years ago. But still, from Rajapur to Ratnagiri is today also 2.5 hours distance by bus. They have probably lived through this area, and over the years they have been carving all these things. I mean, I may not be, saying this fact historically correct, but I'm just giving a flavor of how these artworks have came into, being.
Yeah, I was really taken aback and surprised by this as well. Like, firstly, like you said, very, very lesser known, right? We don't talk about this enough. And at the same time, going by these are not like the small rock paintings of, let's say, Bhimbedka, right? These are those are another types. These are like life size, right? Like you mentioned, some of them 40 to 50 feet. Like there's one of an elephant, I think that's like almost the size of an elephant. There's others of animals, fish, birds, humans, and even some of them are abstract, right? Just geometrical patterns and figures and stuff like that. So it's really, really impressed by it, and definitely something to figure out. And I think some interesting things also that come to this, right? A couple of art forms that I saw references to were those of a rhino and a hippo, right? Which are not even native to this part of the country, right? So things like that. Maybe there used to be rhinos and hippos in Ratnagiri back in the day. So things like that really amazed me, and really something that was very, very unique to Ratnagiri that I had never come across. And that's why we appreciate Amruta that much more for opening our eyes and showing us a lot of these lesser known things. So thank you for sharing that. And I think one other important thing, I mean, we're talking about tangible and built history. The other important piece that one usually does not miss when in Ratnagiri, and I'm sure this is also very, very touristy, is the Tiba Palace, right? Amruta, do you want to
Yes.
touch upon that as well? It has a very interesting history, right? That I'm keen about, and obviously the architecture also is very unique to the region. So, do you want to touch upon that?
Yeah. Britishers were actually wanted to rule Myanmar, and we know how what the colonial agenda was and everything, and how history unfolds, how history unfolded for the kings in India, and all those things. So similar pattern or similar thing has happened in Myanmar also. They kind of arrested the last king, ruling king of Myanmar, whose name was the Thiba. And they brought him first to Chennai by boat. In Chennai, they literally took away all his royal jewels, and then they again, made him travel to Ratnagiri, and then he was stationed in Ratnagiri. And after some time, they were like, okay, he's a king. Let us build a palace for him. So his inputs were, of course, taken, and then the unique structure came into being. So it has some features which are very Myanmarese feature. It has some features which are very unique because the material that he's going to use is very much native. So laterite is everywhere on the palace. Then there are bigger rooms in octagon size. Then there is a veranda in between. The cooking area, interestingly, is a little like 30-40 feet away from the palace. And then given the rains in the Ratnagiri and it being on the plateau, Sada, I mean, the rains would be definitely torrential up on the plateau. So, given that there is a small walkway that they had created, which is a sheltered walkway from the cooking place to the palace, there is a small museum also, which is like run by the Maharashtra Archaeological Survey. And you can see the historical edifices, the sculptures, and everything. They have maintained the two rooms of the palace as is, as probably back in the days they were of. And then there were two queens which came along with him. But this is a very poignant history. A king staying away from his land, far, far, like 2-3 thousands away, looking at the sea, just wondering when he will be able to be on the boat again, just to go back to his country. I mean, how poignant this can be. So for me, this is very unique, and this also connects two countries together. There was a samadhi, as what we called a memory stone, or I don't know how to translate this.
A memorial.
Cenotaph. Cenotaph is the
Cenotaph?
right word.
Yeah,
Yes,
Cenotaph
I
Memorial.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, of Thiba, a few kilometers away from the palace. And very recently, the Myanmar government, actually, some officials came, and the last remains of him was taken to his own country. At that point in time, very unique thing happened. So few royal descendants of Thiba came from Myanmar, and few descendants who are now assimilated into the localites mate, and they are cousins, but they don't know the language of each other. They can't talk to each other because these descendants now speak Marathi, and those still speak their own dialect or the language. I mean, this gets more and more poignant. We don't think of the effect of colonialism in these terms. So, seeing this structure is much more than just seeing the structure. So, this is unique. So, must see places Thiba Palace for very many reasons. Again, also, if you want to visit Thiba Palace, I would also suggest go in January or around January. There's a cultural festival that happens here of art circle mahotsav or something like that, and they decorate the palace really well. There are classical music concerts, and there's a sea wind coming in, so it's really beautiful experience. So you will get to see the local culture as well as experience the palace in unique way. How the Myanmari and the localite culture made the palace, and how it is now adapted by the people and they are using it. So it's a cultural dialogue between the localites and the palace itself. So it's very unique, I must say.
Yeah, for sure, and it is quite a grand structure, right? I mean, not definitely. It doesn't like some of the other bigger palaces you might see in the country, but it is still
Hmm.
definitely unique or stands out in Ratnagiri, I would say, right? And
Absolutely, absolutely.
so surely see this for the architecture and more so for the history, right? So try looking up and reading about it too as you visit there. He ended up, like you mentioned, he ended up dying here after a few years, and his remains were only recently, and apparently it was because the previous Myanmar military junta, right? They had a military rule there
Yeah, yeah.
until very recently, 2012 or so, and they didn't recognize him as the official king, and that's why they never bothered. But I think since then, after there's been actual government set up, they now recognize this, and like I mentioned, they all were also visiting and took back some of the remains. There is a very popular picture, right? When I was looking up, there is a black and white picture of the king, the queen, and the daughter, I believe.
Yeah.
One may come across as well. And I think the interesting thing, like you were mentioning about colonialism, Tiba, the king of Myanmar, was exiled here to Ratnagiri, and I believe even Lokmanya Tilak, when he was jailed and exiled, he spent some of his time in Burma, right, and
Mandali.
Myanmar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Yes.
so there's that bit too. I mean, Britishers were notorious for this, basically exiling people to far off places so that
Right.
they become politically or whatever inactive. So he even Bahadur Shah Zafar, right, the last Mughal ruler, even he was exiled to
Right.
Burma. So
Rangoon.
that way, Rangoon. So yeah, I think some ways in which the British Empire and colonialism played out back in the day, just something to note. And because you're also an archivist and interested in company history, one interesting fact I came across when I was looking on this, Amruta, and you may want to look further into this as well, is
Uh-huh.
basically King Thibaw, he was his kingdom was usurped after the third Anglo Myanmar battle, right? And that was
Yeah.
because the Myanmar had started to lean in with the French, right, to counter the British. And how
Right.
or what triggered this battle was a company called as, I believe it was the Bombay Burma Trading Corporation. That company,
Uh-huh.
owned by the British, the king and the queen, basically the government there, they fined them or whatever for not paying enough taxes. That kind of triggered the third Anglo
Yeah.
Myanmar war, and that company
Myanmar
is
war.
now, yeah, owned by the Wadia Group, right? It still is in existence, the Bombay Burma Trading Corporation, and it's owned by Nestle Wadia's Wadia Group. So I mean, since
Oh,
you,
wow.
yeah, are keen on
Yeah,
company
yeah.
histories and
This is
stuff
very
like that, I
unique
thought I'd mention that.
feature of.
Basically, what led to Tiba ending up here in Ratnagiri, that company is still in existence. It's still functioning, and it's owned by the Wadia Group now. So just a few things that history finds funny ways of connecting in, right? So I thought I'll just throw that out there too.
True.
But yeah, thank you so much for giving us some much needed context about this Thibaw Palace and how it ended up being in Ratnagiri. And I think as we start to wrap up, I mean, there's definitely a lot more places, but a couple more things that I would certainly want to touch upon is the very popular cuisine and very unique cuisine of this place too. Do you want to touch upon that, Amrita?
Yeah. So people who have heard probably Samantwadi podcast, there are going to be some repetitions, but I cannot help myself but have to speak about the Alfonsos. Now the Alfonsos which you're having in Samantwadi are Devgad Alfonsos. Alfonso which you're having in Ratnagiri are Ratnagiri Alfonsos. There's a difference. No,
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Both of them are really, really good, but definitely one must have Alfonsos and the products of Alfonsos that are made here. We locally called it hapusamba. Then the cashew nuts are there, the jackfruits are there, and the variety of subjis that we make out of jackfruit. Like when jackfruit is a baby jackfruit, till the jackfruit is like full grown jackfruit and yet not fully ripe. And once after the ripe, so just go local as you can go. There are some research has been done around the fishing community cuisine, because the culture is influenced by the trade routes, the ancient trade routes, the
Yeah.
seafarers who are going to the other lands and coming back. They are bringing something along with them, so that is also very unique. I don't know how will one get access to it, because it is not available in the restaurants or some places. You may have to really, if you're interested, go into the communities, fishermen communities, and like get to it. So that has a very unique flavor, I must say. Then definitely the types of rice and the things that we make out of rice is unique, and there is no end to the creativity. So there
Correct.
are amboris that you can try. Then I mean, so many other things. I must mention modak, otherwise people won't allow me to enter in Ratnagiri. So
Yeah.
definitely that modak is made out of coconut, jaggery, and the outer shell is made out of rice. Again, so very local cuisine, I would say. The use of coconut is there. There are so many types of fishes and the crabs and whatnot, and you will get a very fresh seafood here if you are interested. Also, there are machi markets in most of the areas, so you can go there for just fun. And like if you're booking something like Airbnb or something, and it has what do I say, a kitchen and everything, you can actually enjoy cooking it by yourself. There's so many restaurants which offer like local cuisine, and of course, very amazingly, Ratnagiri has developed a misal culture, and they have their own flavor to it. Because the misal that you will definitely, there is a huge fight. I'm not going to talk about the leagues of Pune, Kolhapur, and Nashik,
Yeah.
because we being Ratnagirikas, we don't compete, but there are some really nice misal spots that has come in picture. Then there are types of vadas. Vadas is actually bhazaniche vade. So there are so many grains that they have roasted, and the dough is made out of that, and those are very unique in future. You can have it with the dahi, you can have it with the butter, which is derived from the buttermilk, not the other butter. So that is there, pauta juicer and all these things. If you are going in the rainy season, I'm not going to name anything, fancy, like, oh, biryani or something like that. That definitely you can have in all other places. But these are kind of, dying out of the fashion or something. So these things are there. Then there are veggies which come around rainy season, like takrachi bhaji and something. And these flavors are unique, and you would definitely not get it anywhere like other places but the Konkan, because the veggie is very unique to the terra firma and nothing else. Then one can also have, if you're going in summer season, other than the mangoes, you can have karvando, which is like a small black fruit, which is like a baby like size, that is there. And like every person in Konkan will have a childhood story around going to pick up the karvanda and coming back, and like how we made a carrier out of the tree, the leaves nearby and everything. So those things are there. So you can go local as you can. Actually, like, go and ask people locally, wherever you are roaming, what should they eat, and they'll tell you the variety which is available in that particular area. And this is like a year-long tradition. So if you're going in the rainy season, enjoy the veggies which are specifically rainy season veggies. If you're going in the summer, enjoy the fruits and everything that you're getting. If you're going into the winter season, enjoy the vadas, the bhazaniche vade, and all those things that I'm saying. So definitely, weather-wise, things are going to change. So every season has something to offer to you.
Yeah. Very interesting. And there's no, yeah, the bottom line is there's no dearth of food options here. And definitely, like Amruta mentioned, try to speak as much as possible with the locals and find out what you may be best trying out given the time of the year as well, right? Depending on the seasons, there seems to be a lot of things available. So thank you for covering those bits off as well, Amrita. And finally, before we wrap this up, any other places of interest or points of interest that we did not touch upon during the conversation? I'm sure there is, so I'll just give you a moment to
Yeah.
touch upon them. So at least we highlight them for maybe a future episode.
Of course. So we haven't touched on Lanja and Rajapur cluster, which is again another cluster. So we can go in the Lanja and Rajapur. Lanja was known as again a summer retreat for Britishers. There was town village called Matsar, so you can go and explore the village. In Rajapur, there was a British factory, and the remnants are still there. So if you're interested into the colonial history, you can go and visit there and like explore the trade routes. Then there is a place called Adivre. Near that, there is a old temple, and the geoglyph is there. Then there is a village before that is also there is a very unique temple, Kanakaditya. This is a sun temple, and Ratnagiri is not a place, or even Konkan belt. Sun temple is a very unique feature. There are not
Right.
many sun temples as Gujarat would have,
Mm-hmm.
or Bengal or Odisha would have.
Right.
But this has a very unique history also. Read up online. There is a lot written about the history of this. This is again a Panchayatan, but Panchayatan may sun being the main deity in the sanctum, and the rest will follow. There are wood carvings in this temple. You will also find the Tamrapat, which is copper plate of donation by then kings. In this temple there is old well in this temple, so water heritage is something I can touch upon. Then there are 10 avatars of Vishnu are carved in Sun Temple, Makhara, or like where the deity is situated. The sun god here is wearing the Irani chappals also, because for Indians, sun is out there. You go and you give the arghya or the water offering that we do in the morning. So sculpture, the idea of wearing sculpture has come from like other places in India of the sun. So you'll find this very unique feature in every sun temple in India, and that is still in Ratnagiri. So Ratnagiri is like all these places. You will find British factories, colonial rule, remnants, connection with Myanmar, connection with 20,000 years old people, connection with like other places. So Lanja and Rajapur I would touch upon, and we can do probably another episode on it. But yeah, these
Yeah.
things are worth mentioning even while we are going.
Yeah, absolutely right. And each of these clusters, I think, deserves an episode and more of its own. There's so much more, and I have to thank you, Amruta. I don't know if anybody else could have done justice to Ratnagiri like you have done, and we are still kind of short on time, right? So you see the kind of coverage you're giving, both in terms of breadth and depth, right? So it's not just one or the other. So really, really appreciate you for that, and for everybody to follow you, your work. We'll definitely make sure we link both of the previous podcasts as well as your social media handles, so listeners can reach out to you if they have any questions. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking time out and coming back on the podcast. And you know why, the listeners also know now why we keep insisting on having you back on the podcast, because of the variety and the depth of knowledge you give, not just of well-known places, but also of the lesser-known places, and how one can work towards not just exploring them, but also preserving them. Thank you so much, Amruta, for being back on the podcast.
Thank you so much, actually, for giving me a chance to share my love towards museums, the archives, and the historical things. I bombard with, I guess, historical facts, but thank you so much for being patient and like inviting me again and again. It means so much.
Yeah, it is much valued and much appreciated, and that's why we want to keep bringing you back. Thank you so much, Amruta.
Thank you so much.
That was yet another great episode on the Musafir Stories. Make sure to show us some love by sharing the podcast with your friends and family. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Musafir Stories. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM podcast app or the website. Follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.